This is NDTV and you are watching NDTV Prime.
It's a brand new week and a brand new episode of CNB Bazaar Buzz right here on the NDTV network, and it's a very special episode as well. Thanks for joining us on the 100th episode of CNB Bazaar Buzz. I'm Siddharth Vinayak Partankar. A quick look then at what's coming up on this special show. Royal Enfield is riding a new wave. We will tell you what's happening at the niche bike maker. It's a monumental initiative from Hyundai Motor India. Welcome to this brand new show that we're bringing you and a look back at those 100 episodes of this show. In the first quarter of this financial year, Royal Enfield contributed a massive amount, almost 90% of the profits to Eicher Motors. Now, while that might seem more than surprising, behind that is a conscious strategy that's seen the company build itself up from 25 to 50,000 units a year sold to now looking at 6,75,000 units this year as a target. And that's not where that number ends. It's going to go up to over 1 million bikes in just a few years' time. Here's how it's looking for Royal Enfield in the future.
Years ago, when Siddharth Lal took charge of Royal Enfield, most advisors were telling Eicher to shut down the business. 10 years ago, the company was barely selling 50,000 units a year, and now it plans to close the current fiscal with 6,75,000 bikes sold. That's a long journey for the niche motorcycle maker. The bump in numbers this year will mean that the 2015 sales record will be eclipsed. That's thanks to a new assembly line at its second plant in Chennai that's just been inaugurated, and that capacity is set to grow further.
Now, when Royal Enfield entered India in 1957, it had very little idea that today in 2016 it will have 2 manufacturing plants, 2 assembly lines and third one under construction with 1 assembly line. Well, investment of 600 crore has already been announced for this financial year, and by the next financial year, third quarter, we'll have the third plant up and running.
In 2005, Royal Enfield sold approximately 25,000 units. The figure went up by 50,000 by 2010. In 2014, the figure shot up to almost over 3 lakh units, and more recently in the last fiscal, the company sold nearly over 4.5 lakh bikes, a growth of over 50% from the previous year. Exports also grew over 33% last year. Royal Enfield is expecting a further 20% growth in sales in the current financial year. The company's latest offering, the Himalayan, is seeking 1,000+ unit sales every month, and there is also pretty healthy demand for other models like Continental GT and Classic in both the domestic and export markets. So Royal Enfield has begun work on its third manufacturing unit near Chennai, which will be operational in the second half of 2017. The new plant will take the total annual capacity at the company to 9 lakh units, with the provision to expand that to 11 lakh by 2020.
Strong set of numbers coming in for the first quarter, clearly beating all analyst and street expectations, and a lot of that on the back of its motorcycle business. I'm talking about Eicher Motors, which has had a stellar first quarter. And talking about that and a lot more in terms of what we can expect going through the rest of the fiscal, we have the MD and CEO of Eicher Motors, Mr. Siddharth Lal, joining us from the brand new expanded facility of its manufacturing in Chennai. Sid, it's good to have you with us here on NDTV. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's. I wish you could be here as well. It's a, we're out at Oragadam Phase 2. So we've just got this plant up and running, the second phase of a new plant that we set up in 2013. I was just told that out of this part of the plant alone, we're doing around 900 units a day. So yeah, it's nice to be out here, and hope to see you soon.
The point you mentioned right at the end there about getting into new market areas as well and expanding the brand even here in India, are there specific geographic pockets that you're looking at where Royal Enfield may not currently have much of a footing, but where you see a lot of potential?
We're adding 2 to 3 dealers every single week in small towns these days in India. So that's a big potential. Then while we've grown, let's say again in the affluent parts of the country, so the northern belt and the western and southern belt, the entire middle belt and eastern belt is relatively untapped market for us. So we're activating those markets a lot, and they're very enthusiastic about Royal Enfield because they've traditionally loved our brand.
It is very different, and so then let me ask you this, Sid, how many Himalayans do you look to sell every month going forward?
Fortunately for us, the rest of our models will give us whatever numbers we need to fill up the capacities, right? So the Himalayan, we have adequate capacity. Of course, we're ramping up in our supplier end, in our engine end, in our assembly end, but we don't want to push the issue. It's a new model in a new segment, and which doesn't exist in India altogether. We want to make sure that we sell right, we sell to the right people, that they appreciate what the Himalayan is all about, and organically we want that to grow. So if it, obviously we're already crossed 1,000 a month. If it goes to many thousands a month, we're delighted, and that's what we want. But we don't want to push the issue because we want to make sure that it happens in a way that is natural. We sell it to the person who's going to use the Himalayan.
It also doesn't hurt that it's also a nice high margin product for you, so I'm sure you'd like to sell more. The third plant that you're also looking at now, you announced that a while ago. So what, it's going to be on stream by the start of 2018, and overall what will your capacity look like then going forward long term?
No, next year actually, Siddharth, as we speak, in 13 months from now we should see the next plant up and running as well. So that will help us in getting to 900,000 or 9 lakhs by FY 18-19. So FY 19, that's year 18,000 in 2018-19. So it's not very far where we should be able to produce 9 lakh motorcycles now. And yeah, it's a far cry from, let's say, a decade before that where we were sub 50,000. But yeah, that's the fun of what we're doing. When the business is growing on the front end, we're able to certainly, eventually we'll be able to add the capacity to be able to meet it. So capacity is always the last issue really. It's always about creating the brand, creating the interest, creating the service network, the aftermarket, the sales network, and then eventually we'll up the capacity as well, which we're doing of course.
All right, 11 lakh capacity is not too far then, I suppose. The new platforms, the new engines, tell us a little bit more about that, also the kind of investments you'll make towards them.
So yeah, again, what you see behind us is our first new platform in forever actually. So it's the Himalayan, and it's a purpose-built adventure tourer. We're so excited about it, and we're excited about getting it out there more and more. The Himalayan summer has just begun, so we expect people to go much more in the course of July, August, September, well, nearly August, September, October, into the Himalayas. We do have other products in the pipeline. We've announced before that we'll have probably another product by the end of next year as well. But that's for later. Right now we're focused on establishing the Himalayan as the most important motorcycle in India this year. So we're excited about that.
So on a personal note then, Sid, if I had to ask you this, 5 years ago you would probably not have dreamed that the motorcycle business was contributing this way to the overall Eicher Motors numbers. I mean, what is it, 89 to 90% of the quarter's profits come from Royal Enfield?
Absolutely not. No, that was certainly not our expectation. And percentages don't matter really at the end of the day. I mean, we're delighted if the percentage comes down because of great profitability in trucks. So, as long as both are growing well, we're happy.
All right, Siddharth Lal, thank you for speaking to us. Really appreciate your time, and looks like it's going to be an interesting year in terms of numbers coming from Eicher Motors, perhaps right through this fiscal.
Thanks so much, Siddharth. Thank you.
So a lot of excitement coming from Royal Enfield, and you know what, it's not just going to be about capacity, it's also going to be new products. Like we got the Himalayan this year, the new platforms and new engines, well, that's what's going to keep things very interesting for us. Now let's move on and talk about a nice initiative that's happening on the corporate social responsibility side for Hyundai. It is a monumental one. What am I talking about? Let's take a look at the report to find out.
Heritage campaign run by Hyundai in association with the Archaeological Survey of India. Now in its second phase, the campaign aims to build awareness about preserving India's monuments.
We are respecting the Indian history. That's why through the small events, we want to improve Indian historical monumental everything, right? And we want to give the actual Indian history to the people. That's why this kind of small action, but will improve some furthermore. Also, we'll extend our this kind of events every year.
As part of this program, Hyundai conducted an awareness drive with 100 Happy Move Global Youth volunteers. Out of these students, 80 hail from Korea and 20 from India.
I think it's very rare opportunity, but also best opportunity to teach students about the preservation of World Heritage, because we're making our own programs. We designed it in South Korea, and we brought all the equipment. So we're planning to teach them how important it is to preserve World Heritage, and I'm looking forward to meet Indian children.
In the second phase, Hyundai will carry out the awareness drives at Jantar Mantar, Qutub Minar, Old Fort and Hauz Khas in the national capital. The volunteers will undertake maintenance activities to preserve the amenities and gardens at these sites, and will educate visitors about the value and upkeep of our heritage.
We paint the fences, we dig the ground so that we can install the garbage bins, and we dig the ground so that the water can stay in the flower bed and the flower plants, and also we do fencing also.
Earlier this year, the Korean auto major had taken this campaign to the Safdarjung Tomb, Firozshah Kotla, Qutub Minar and Old Fort as part of phase 1.
These heritages have come to us from, basically they are the creations, or these monuments are creations of our earlier generations. They are the ones who created it and we inherited it. And the upkeep, or they can be passed on to the next generation, and they should be involved and they should have the awareness. And that's the reason whole idea is behind us, is that involve the youth, the future of the country, so that they can understand the importance of these monuments and they can pass it to the next generation by way of creating a happy environment.
All of us at CNB sincerely hope that HMIL will expand this move across the country in the future and not limit this great initiative to just the capital.
Now, given the success Hyundai has had there with that initiative, I hope that CSR policy goes away from just being in the national capital region and national instead. Great move. Now let's take a very short break here on Bazaar Buzz. We have a look back at our 100 episodes coming up.